Let's see here. Share. Perfect. So we are talking today about open houses, and I would consider open houses to be one of my pillars that I use to grow my business. And I come from a background where my ex-husband was a real estate agent in Las Vegas. We had a brokerage, but he was just his own broker. And I used to want him to do open houses, and I wasn't an agent at the time, and he'd say, open houses don't work, open houses don't work. Well, he went through divorce, and then I moved on to joining Keller Williams as I moved to Utah and got licensed as an agent. And I got to hear a great training from Claire Gunn in the KW South Valley office about open houses. And I took advantage of what I learned, and I built my business getting clients from open houses. So both two things happen from open houses, in my opinion, before we get started. One, it shows the seller that we're putting effort into selling their home. Two, it brings buyers the opportunity to come and see the home without a lot of effort or coordination, or even without an agent. And three, it's a way we can attract clients as well. So with those unrepresented buyers. So we're just going to talk about how it generates leads and grows our database and capture those leads at open houses, and social media leads with capturing leads with social media. So we're going to capture leads with the open houses, some best practices. We're going to prepare and prospect and pursue. And I'll do a recap with you, and then we'll talk about some daily successes. A quote here from Gary Keller: nothing else about your business will have as big an impact as it does as the number of leads you have. And that's absolutely true. One of Gary's favorite most recent quotes is, I'm sorry, I've got a call, and I'm just going to let that go. Okay. Is nothing else in our business is, he also says that real estate is a contact sport, and that's, you got to make contacts or you're not going to have business. So we want to, again, we talked about this. I don't have a listing to hold an open house. That's not true as well. You have a whole office full of listings. And if you don't have signs yet, our office has signs, or the agent that you're holding the open house for will have signs. And you may not know the answers to questions of the visitors you have. Well, we can help with that, but most importantly, it's just about building relationships. You're just wanting to build a friendship and create trust. So really, it's not about having answers to the questions. It's about asking the questions that the buyers can answer. That's really what we're after, questions. Open houses don't really work because most people look online. They look online, but they want to see in person. And if you don't feel safe, we can talk about ways, and we'll go over that, talk about ways we can make sure that people feel safe when holding an open house. Please pipe in if you have a question. So we're going to talk about capturing leads. So sellers, buyers, neighbors, you're as the agent. So with every one house, I mean, these are some statistics I'm rattling off. I can't remember where I got them, but for every one house that goes for sale in a neighborhood, within the next quarter, two more houses will go up for sale. So building those relationships with the neighbors and keeping them informed are great ways to develop more leads or get more leads to sell more houses. Let them know what your successes are. Let me jump back to that real quick. And so, yeah, buyers, sellers, neighbors. So, and there can be some no soliciting rules if it's inside an HOA community with gated or whatever it may be. There might be some no soliciting rules. I definitely always say respect a house that's got a sticker on it or a sign on it that says no soliciting. There's other ways to target them, or at least not be knocking on their door. And benefits of an open house: they're inexpensive, they're a prospecting tool, they have a high return on their investment, and it's a great way to get qualified leads. And so that is absolutely true. So does anybody have any questions so far about just talking about the basics of open houses?
No.
Okay, thanks, Amber. And so we want to set some goals on the open house. Like, what do you want to achieve with the open house? Because there's a lot of things you can do. I don't always do every one, not because I shouldn't, or I should or shouldn't. It's just because it depends on where I allocate my time or my resources in my business today. As I start to improve my personal systems with my business, There's always things where I want to incorporate direct mail. I want to incorporate a couple other things that I haven't been doing or used to do and I don't do anymore. So there's lots of options of what we can do. So we want to set the goals. What are your goals? What do you want to achieve from this? Do you want a buyer for that particular house? Do you want to just have conversations with people and see, even if they do have an agent? So Claire Gunn used to say, as well as Lee Stern, a couple other people you'll become familiar with within Keller Williams, she would say, well, they may or may not have a buyer broker agreement signed. And if they don't have a buyer broker agreement signed, they may not have an agent. So discussing with them how, testing out some conversations. Somebody says, hey, are you working with an agent? I am. Great. When you put your name down on the paper, why don't you go ahead and add your agent's name and number, and so that if you decide to move forward, I've got their contact information. Or questions such as, do you, tell me about your agent. I really love it when buyers have agents that they're working with. What is your agent? Tell me about your agent. What do you like about that person? How did you meet? You're just building conversation with them. And if they don't have an agent, you just ask them what brought them by. Did they find it by a sign, or did they find it on the internet? Do some exploratory questions. Ask them what brought them in, what drew them in. Ask about their family. Ask how long they've lived in the area, or where do they live now, and how soon they might be wanting to purchase. You'll have a sign-in sheet, and there's millions of versions of those everywhere, from Pinterest to just the internet to here in the office to from your productivity coach for sign-in sheets. So of course there are questions there that they're answering, but asking them and engaging is most important. Then you pick a house. Definitely want to pick a house that is going to be hopefully higher traffic, is new on the market or just had a price reduction. You definitely want to look at it to see and learn more about that house. Maybe even go tour it first before you decide to do an open house there. But definitely picking areas where there's a lot more traffic. Sometimes that lower traffic houses that haven't been selling, talk to the agent about why they think it hasn't sold, and see if they're willing, what changes could they make? And if they were to make those changes, you'd be open to holding an open house if they needed one. So it's definitely picking the right house is really important. And knowing, think about your market numbers. So that's really important, is we want to look and see if we feel like that house is overpriced, or in our own opinion, and then you can consult with your productivity coach to say, do you think this is a good choice? Do you think this is a good one to hold an open house for? So for me, if I've held an open house and it doesn't have a lot of traffic, I always make sure I know what I'm going to be doing at the house while I'm there. So I might be working on my database. It might be prospecting to my database. So I don't just sit there and waste time at an open house. If the open house isn't drawing the traffic that I would like, then I definitely make sure that I know what I'm going to be doing for those 2 hours that I'm there. And here's an example. I had an open house held last Saturday. We only had one person through the house at the open house, but they bought the house. So open houses do work. And they came back with their agent, took a second tour, and we had an offer by that night. So they definitely do work. And knowing our market, so talking about knowing our market, that one, I knew we had an advantage for lot size, condition of house. The basement was finished. It had an ADU for part of the basement. And so it had all of these extra features. And I need to admit someone, it had all of these extra features that I knew that even though we were surrounded by new construction, and the new construction was offering better interest rates, maybe even a better price per square foot, a buyer wouldn't have to come out of pocket for landscaping, fence, or finishing the basement. And so I knew that even though we appeared to be comparable pricing for square footage on the MLS, because also the builders like to offer a lower price, because then they allow you to choose options and then it goes up. So a couple of builders, I knew they have options, so the price goes up. So knowing your market, also knowing what's going on around in the area, so you can have a conversation. And so even though it would have sold without any problem quite quickly, but it was just the timing was perfect, and we held that open house, and that allowed the buyer to come without having to arrange for their agent. So they could just come in, casually take a look, and then they decided they were serious. Then we have prepare and practice. So you can invite someone such as a lender or an inspector to come to the house. I personally haven't done that, but I do have discussed the houses with a lender. So if I got a house I'm doing an open house for, I have them run me some numbers. They love to provide handouts where they can provide, a lender loves to be supportive too, help you with snacks or help you with if they can co-brand, they'll help with some direct mail or some handouts related to lending on the property. So that's also helpful as well, is to have some lending information. What would it cost to own this house, and how could you do it? Pick a time and a theme. I haven't done the themes until Britta, who works with me on my team, she came up with a great theme for this house. She did just something very festive and summery, and she wore a summery dress, and it really it gave a great vibe when we walked into the house that I literally told her I had to step up my game and start. And she's like, I'm just going to do the summer theme all summer long for the open house. And I said, well, then so am I. I'm going to go get myself a real great summery dress. And she just had sandals on and a great dress, and she just gave this really tropical theme. She had just a cute little flyer that she did with it related to, come on in and enjoy the cool weather and the hot summer sun. And she just did something really cute. And it was just inviting and fun once the buyer came in the door. So it was really fun to observe. I was there doing something that I do to homes, I'll share at the end. But I was there doing that because just before the open house started, and then they came in and I was still there. And it was fun to see their reaction to what she had done to make it really fun. And so pick a time. It's important to pick times. There are a couple of different times people do for open houses. Sometimes they do midweek, such as a Wednesday in the evening. Of course, Saturday's really popular. Certain areas, Sundays work well, such as daybreak. Certain areas work well for Sundays. But if you were to look at, so that's day of the week, first of all, and then and then on Saturdays, there's kind of two slime slots that people tend to like to do, like 11 to 1 or 11 to 2, or the afternoon, like a 1 to 3 or a 1 to 4. I typically do the 11 to 1. I'm more of a 2-hour open house person. People still end up coming toward the end. That's just when they come, and it tends to carry over a little bit. So I stick with that 11 to 2 time slot. I'm sorry, yeah, 11 to 1, excuse me. If for some reason I feel like we're in an area that's going to have a lot of it's going to be likely a family buyer, and they could likely have a lot of soccer games or practices going on in the morning, then I will put it at a 1 to 3 afternoon slot. Especially if I've done one open house one weekend, felt like it didn't have a good turnout, I'll do the next weekend from 1 to 3 and see if I can generate some more traffic. So picking that best time. Then preparing the stats for the house. So again, knowing your market, we talked about that. So I always want to know what the competition is in the neighborhood. I also like to practice my CMAs when I was doing open houses to see if I would price the property at the same price that the listing agent had priced it at, just to see if I came up with the same number. And so see if I thought that it was priced correctly. And that's also helps you in choosing where you want to do your open house. And again, keeping in mind that when you're doing open houses, of course, your goal is to sell that house. I did have an agent in our office hold an open house for me. A buyer came in unrepresented. She wrote the offer for the unrepresented buyer. It was multiple offers. She was the best offer. So she ended up winning the contract for her buyer. So it ended up working out great. And that was and for an agent in our office. So it ended up working out great. And I couldn't do the open house. And with a particular client, and we had a contingency on another property, it would not have been in my client's best interest for me to have limited agency on that transaction anyway. So it ended up just being a win-win. So ended up working out well. So yeah, just knowing your market. And if you're like, well, I don't have enough skills, I don't know my market well enough, doesn't matter. Jump in and do that open house. Get started. You've got to start somewhere, start those conversations, and then you just evaluate yourself and say, how well did that go? What could I do differently? Or who can I ask for an improvement in this area or that area? It's really just practice. It's getting out there and practicing and practicing. And it's really important. Signs are really helpful. I get traffic off of signs. So, it's definitely helpful to talk to a listing agent and ask, how many signs do you have and can I pick those up? Because, I can easily go through 10 signs without any problem, and I'm not even far out. Claire Gunn puts out sometimes 20 to 25 signs on her open houses. And I know I can go through 10 very quickly as far as signs go. Now, speaking of signs, A-frames work better because there's not a lot of soil that the H signs can stick in the ground. So I tend to find a lot of struggles with the H signs, so H-frame signs, and so the A-frame works much better. And then being safe. People need to know where you are, your family, even another agent needs to know where you are. Definitely arrive early. I find that if I'm running behind at all and I haven't prepared for my open house the night before, it really makes it for a little bit stressful. I park on the street, don't park in the driveway, but sometimes I'll just block the driveway and just park there. But I definitely park because you don't have to be far away from the house. It does not hurt to park somewhere in front. I don't try to block the house completely, but it makes the open house look busy. Somebody's there already, rather than it looking like a ghost town. Um, Check all your entrances and exits when you come in and make sure they're all locked, and make sure that you have your cell phone is fully charged with you. I completely agree with that. And then turn on all the lights. I like to turn on all the lights. I like to open doors and open doors and we don't have any like specific market center guidelines, but open the doors and I let people know where I am. I do not take people through the property. So I let them go tour themselves and I stay where I'm going to be, whether it's in the kitchen or living room area, close to some sort of an exit in the property. I do keep mace on me. I do. I just keep it hidden, but I keep it on me. Um, I haven't had any problems myself. I've had more concerns where, um, I've had a call of a random person wanting to see a property, and that gives me more concerns. But as far as the open house, I'm not touring any open houses. And and if there is a single man that comes in and I feel any type of concern, I invite them to go walk through the house and then I go stand outside until they leave. So those are just some safety things that I do. So, and I do put a sign on the door that welcomes people in, and I do keep the door closed. So, and then just letting people know where I am and that somebody I should check in with as soon as I'm done so they know what time. Does anybody have any questions for me there? Okay. Gary Keller again, he has lots of great quotes. Been doing this for a long time. The difference between big and really big is how you manage your time and focus. And that's true. And I tend to chase all the crazy things that are going on and forget what's most important and have to regroup and say, why am I doing that? That's just not the one thing that will prepare myself, my business forward. And my productivity coach asks me every week, what is the one thing you can do this week that will grow your business? If you did nothing else, what would it be? And that's the question you answer. And it can change week to week, but what is that one thing? So prepare, prospect, pursue. So that's our next section. Prepare. Most of the work in the open houses is done the day before the open house day. So I completely agree with preparing your mindset and practicing some conversations. So what would you, it's really about asking questions. As you can see, I'm a talker. So I tend to talk more, and I've had to learn to ask questions more because I'm one of those that likes to sponge up lots of information. So I definitely want to know, what brought you to the house. So just having a list of questions, even nowadays, ChatGPT can even write them for you. What questions would I want to ask a prospective buyer coming into an open house? It'd be really interesting to see what ChatGPT says. So developing some questions and develop a script for me. I've been using ChatGPT to write scripts for me lately related to prospecting. And so just know what you want to ask. And really, you're just wanting to build rapport, almost as if you are a server at a restaurant and you're inviting people in. They came in. What do they want to eat? What are they looking for? Why did they come? Are they celebrating something special? Creating questions that are related to a buyer would be a great way to go there. So asking them if they've gotten pre-qualified with a lender. So pre-qualified with a lender. And I've had at times and said, hey, if you haven't been, oh, I have no idea if I can buy, we're just looking at the house. Well, there's no obligation, but do you mind if I send you a lender? If you reach out to this person, and I give her a compliment or him and say, if you reach out, they're going to pre-qualify you. And I talk a little bit about lending. I just say, hey, have you ever purchased a loan before? Do you know anything about about a home loan? If they say no, I said, well, it's actually not as scary as you think. The great part about it is they will pull your credit, but it doesn't affect your credit score like buying a car or getting a credit card. And I said, so really, it'll just drop your credit score by 1 to 2 points, but within the next month, it's back up those 2 points. But those 2 points aren't affecting whether you get a certain rate or not. And I would say it's just best to get a picture of what you can buy, and you might find that you're qualified to buy now, or you might find that you can qualify to buy in a year. Best thing to do is just know information is knowledge. And very often those potential buyers end up reaching out to the lender. Now, I notify the lender right away to let them know. If I'm sharing that lender's information, that allows me to capture a phone number of this buyer. And so I'm able to capture the phone number of the buyer. And I always set expectations. Hey, I've got your phone number here. I'm going to go ahead and save your information to it. I want you to know I'm not going to stalk you, but do you mind if I reach out in a week or so and see if you've decided to get pre-qualified for a loan? Or do you mind if I reach out to you for whatever reason it is? And you just have a reason that would work, that they would want to connect with you. And that's it. No obligation. So I just tell them, look, no obligation, just reaching out to you at any point. As long as it's helpful, I'll continue to share valuable information with you. And many of them are like, great. So I'm like, go take a look, enjoy the home, take a look at it. Tell me what you like and don't like about it. So particularly, Claire Gunn taught me that I have a little clipboard where buyers can fill out a little questionnaire about the house. And then I have one for kids. So a little questionnaire, and I just got them from Claire Gunn, just do they like the house, don't they? For those who can read. So it actually keeps them a little bit busy because sometimes kids can be a little bit more rambunctious at an open house. Um, Other than a bowl of maybe a piece of candy that they can take with them, not particularly chocolate, but they can take with them when they leave. I do when they come in, especially if they got kids, I do have treats here. If you want to go ahead and take a look at the house, then I'd love for you to come and pick up a treat on your way out. That allows me to connect with them a second time when they leave rather than eating and leaving wrappers in the house. Not a big fan of cookies because people eat them while they walk through the house, unless you say that. I've got a treat for you. Just go, please take a look at the house. And then when you are finished, I'd love to send you out with a treat rather than picking it up on the way in. So let's see. Oh, whoops, I didn't go about all this. Okay, so select your house on Monday and post online, walk the neighborhood, invite neighbors to the showings on Tuesday. This is the schedule that they're doing. Wednesday, post again and install a yard sign for an open house. That's actually really helpful. And I wish I'm actually, when I was preparing for this class, I was actually wanting to do that again. I'd actually completely forgot about doing that. It's funny, after 7 years, I was like, you know what? I need to announce that there's going to be an open house. So I'm going to have some of those signs made. The tricky part is, being able to change the times. So I'm going to figure that out with my sign person. But you could still put an open house and you could still, post the time if you're going to do that on the property. Otherwise, it is being advertised. And I haven't actually put out a yard sign in a long time related to an upcoming open house. So I'm going to work on that and figure out what I'm going to do there. And then post online again and invite your database if you have one. Otherwise, you're inviting people to come and visit you online with Facebook. For those that, for my open houses, I had a particular person do open houses for me for quite a while. And they like to do paid advertising online, and that gathered leads for them. And I would pay for that paid advertising. So I would commit $100 every time they did an open house to do paid advertising. Now they kept the leads, but they would generate those leads and they would door knock, and it just was better advertising for my client. And then post again online for the open house and prepare market statistics, print your flyers, and do some door knocking. Great time to door knock. If you're not able to meet 1 through 5, it still doesn't mean don't do an open house. Do an open house. So, but you can actually change your door knocking to be, maybe you can go earlier and knock the hour before on a Saturday and invite people to come and check out the house to the open house. So, and they like to know community and neighborhood information. They want to know if they can have an ADU. They want to know if they can have a shed. They want to know about the parking. Is it on-street parking, not street parking? They want to know how much the HOA is, if there is an HOA. They want to know, any restrictions related to the property. How close is the nearest park? How close are the schools? That's what they want to know. And then, of course, it's great to have mortgage information on that property. They will pick it up. A couple of scenarios. What's it going to look like with FHA? What is it going to look like with 10% down, 20% down? What is it going to look like? A lender can produce that for you and provide you with that handout. And then you're just building trust and rapport. You're just making friends. That's really what you're at. And then providing value. Where value is just answering their questions. Say, is there anything you need that you'd like to know about the home buying process? And I always tell people, I really do say, no obligation. I'm just here to be a resource. I'd love for you to take my number. I would love to be a resource for you down the road as you ask me questions. If I'm providing valuable information, you'll keep asking. If I'm not, you'll move on. There'll be no obligation. And most people start to reach out to me. I mean, I wouldn't say most, but I get enough that made conversion worth it. Now, there were a lot of times when I did open houses to begin with where I was saying I was just fumbling. I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't know what to ask. You just have to get that out there and practice. But once I decided I should be asking more about them and get them talking, the better I did. How are your kids? How old are they? Where do they go to school? Where do you work? Have you purchased a home before? Do you own the home you're in? It's really just about asking questions. And so that's that building the trust. Yeah, be positive and just be excited. Just be excited that you love your job. You're so excited. Don't need to say how long you've been doing real estate or that you just started. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And you have a team behind you here at Keller Williams. And so nobody cares. So you just build that rapport and build that relationship. And anything you don't have a question for, you just have to say, I'm hosting this open house for the listing agent on her behalf or on his behalf. And so I have really tried to field as many questions as possible to have the answers for you, but I don't have an answer to that question. Do you mind if I just make a note of that and I reach out to you once I've got an answer after the open house? They'll always say yes. Well, guess what? You now have already a reason to talk to them and you're already building rapport. And then sometimes I'll say, you really like this house. And if you like it, that's great. But by the way, I was, a week later, I came across this other house you may be interested or this other property. I thought I'd send it to you. Or based on whatever you talked about, it could even be, hey, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's this great park. We talked about how much your kids like to do this. Here's a great park in the area. And I just thought I'd send it to you. And then at that point, you could even say, hey, I've got an event coming up where we are doing cookies with Santa, and I'd just like to invite you to come. You invite them to come. Hey, I need your email for that. Do you mind if I send you an invite? Great, no obligation. Just want to celebrate the people that help me be a success at real estate. And then providing value. So if your market center stats are always helpful, your team stats are always helpful. It's just good to know. But really, I share most often that I'm with Keller Williams because it's the #1 brokerage in the world, largest brokerage in the world, and there is a reason for that. And that reason is the share culture, and that we promote a win-win situation for buyers and sellers, that we are working to create a win-win situation for buyers and sellers. And so I just come up with a little script that works for me, and it changes over time. And I'm usually going off of what I've learned in some sort of training. There's a tidbit of information that I had learned from a training, and I still do that today. A statistic, for instance, when I used to door knock apartment complexes, Door knocking, some people are super good at. For me, it didn't end up being my best skill or avenue I wanted to pursue. But I really learned from Lee Stern that she said, 1 in 10 people that live in an apartment that rent can buy. And so she would knock on the doors, and that was her script. Did you know? So when I introduced myself, did you know that 1 in 10 people who can rent can buy? As you're door knocking in the neighborhood for an open house, you're knocking on the door. How long have you lived here? Do you rent or do you buy? I'd just like to invite you. The neighbors are selling their home. Thought you might want to come over and take a look at it. It's always fun to see inside other people's homes. And so you're just really just building rapport. So just building rapport. What do you love about the neighborhood? Like as you're knocking on the doors, you ask them, what brought you to move here? Do you enjoy living here? What do you like about it? So those sort of things. Now you might have somebody who says, don't talk to me. You will get all of those. Just be prepared. You will get those that say, don't talk to me. Don't knock on my door. You guys need to leave me alone. I could care less if their house sells. That happens. You just have to be okay with it and just move on. Thank them graciously and move on. So but you will have other people that are super friendly and just want to invite them over. Capturing information, qualifying leads. You're going to have your sign-up sheet. You can enter those into command, or you can have those in your phone and you can use your KW app, and there it is again, ask questions. And when you have, for me, as soon as a lot of times after I've had 2 or 3 people on a sheet, my sheets don't have very many, like only 3 people per page, so that I can grab that page and I can make notes on that page. Nowadays, we have Otter and a lot of other things that can be tracking conversations for us and taking notes for us. We are a one-party state, so you'll need to check, for yourself, but for the information that I've learned from me, I can record those. I haven't recorded open houses, but more and more I tend to move on really quick and I speak quickly. And so going back and writing those notes, making sure I didn't forget anything, a note taker is really helpful for me. So, but ask those questions, but I would just take that page, write some notes, flip it over and stick it to the bottom. So, and then I would write my name on the next page so that it looked, or a name, not my name, just to make it look like somebody was already here because people had been. And you do that anyway, even if nobody showed up yet, you always show that I just create a fake person and I just put them in on the top sheet. So it looks like that somebody's not the first person arriving. Unless they do arrive at 11 o'clock, then that's what it is. So let's see, let's go up here. So we have open houses, the benefits of open houses. They really work, that we open houses best practices, setting goals, picking the right house, prepare and practice, pick the time, prepare stats, and be safe. Now, remembering, even if you've got a house that ended up being low traffic, if you've already knocked the neighbors, or if you're choosing to knock the neighbors after, you're still having a reason to have a conversation with other homeowners in there. And just like I talked about, if one house is up for sale in the neighborhood, 2 more are going to come up for sale in the next quarter. So being able to make that connection, especially if you're like, I just held an open house for Lisa, whatever her last name is, down the street, and I just wanted to touch base with you and let you know that if before I leave, if you'd like to come and tour the house, I'd be happy to show it to you just to take a look or just build conversation. How long have you lived here? What do you like about the neighborhood? I'm just wanting to help your neighbors sell their home, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about how much you love the neighborhood or what you like or don't like about the neighborhood. Let them be honest. What do you like about the neighborhood? What don't you like about the neighborhood? That's really important to ask as well. And so, does anybody want to make any comments about what I've shared so far about holding an open house? It's just worth it. So I'm just telling you it is. I moved back to Utah, didn't have any, I grew up here, but didn't have close relationships. And so for me, open houses was just a way for me to be forced to have conversations. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Well, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So, is it better to do an open house for an agent, or is it better to shadow an open house with
You can
Uh,
do either. I mean,
mhm.
you can do it. You can shadow an open house anytime with an agent. They'd be happy
Okay.
to have you help knock doors and to shadow. Pretty soon you're going to be like, I don't need to shadow anymore. I mean, after like maybe two, you're going to be like, I got this. And you're going to find that not every agent's going to do all of these things on the list, but you could still choose to do them even if you're shadowing. So if you're shadowing the open house, you say, I'm going to shadow you at the open house, especially if a listing is coming on the market really quickly. Put that out on our Facebook group and say, I'd love to shadow somebody. I'd like to come to an open house if you're doing one this weekend or next week, if you know you've got a listing coming on. And in order to shadow you, I'm happy to do whatever it is. I'd like to door knock. I'd like to do some social media posts for it. How can I help that agent who I'm going to shadow? But absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. I think shadowing works. And shadowing's really good because when I do shadow, sometimes they stay with me and then sometimes we tag team, especially if the open house gets busy. Then I'll say, okay, I'm going to allow you to greet them and come in. You've seen what the script is, what you're going to ask them. And then you're just going to say, as you walk through your home, you'll find my partner agent. She's downstairs. She'll show you the accessory dwelling apartment, if that makes sense. So absolutely shadow. And I think that that's a great direction to go. And a lot of agents do that, do shadow. And it's just really just, but when you're shadowing, you want to make them, you don't want to just show up and just be at the open house. You want to test some of these activities that have been recommended in the course. Test the door knocking skills, test your social media skills. Like say, okay, I'm going to focus, I'm going to do an open house for Patrea, me. And you're going to say, okay, I'm going to really focus on making a lot of open house exposure to this property and tag the agent and share the listing. Or you can say, I'm going to really do well on the door knocking. I'm going to do door knocking and I'm going to do that really well. I'm going to get to know everybody in the neighborhood that I possibly can. So I'm going to knock either the morning of, or I'm going to knock the day before, or I'm going to knock 3 days before, like it talked about, but pick when you're going to door knock. And so, yes, absolutely good.
Okay,
So
thank you.
you're welcome. And so then you don't feel like you're taking the whole thing on yourself. You're like, okay, somebody else is taking the lead, but I'm going to focus on these couple of things. So that's really helpful. And then you're just going to talk about how many conversations did you have about, like here, recommending based on the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, 10 conversations a day. And then of those, were you able to add 10 to your database? And then were you able to write any handwritten notes? I am terrible at the handwritten notes, even though I love them so much. It's just not a good skill of mine. I've struggled with that for years. I actually do hire out for some of that for me. I hire out and have somebody do that. So because I carry note cards around, I own more note cards than anybody knows. So that's just a weakness of mine. And then seeing what your social media engagement is on the property, and seeing what kind of interactions you're getting. Ask your friends and families in your SOI. I'm doing holding an open house at this location. Even if you're shadowing, list it that you're holding the open house. You absolutely are. And ask them to invite and ask them to share. I have people in my database that share my open houses to their databases. So it's great. And so let me take a look here. Let's see. Let's see. So we're just talking about lead gen and then what comes of that. So as you start to build these skills, I've gotten buyers, not only for the house that I'm doing the open house for, but just buyers in general. Can I send you some more listings? No obligation. Now, of course, remember, you've got to have a buyer broker agreement in place before you show them physically a property. So I'll allow your coaches to go over that and how best to script that. All of us have methods, but that's a different topic for tonight. And then being careful that, they always want to give warnings about do not call lists. So, of course, you have a reason to call if they've signed and left their phone number. You have a reason to send an email if they've given you their email address. I try to build enough rapport that if they see something from me, they're going to know why they got it. And as far as that goes. And then I engage every conversation in the spirit of contribution, and people are happy to be in relationship with me. Fantastic word of affirmation. I used to think words of affirmations were so weird. And then it's becoming more common, but even then, once I jumped in and engaged in speaking words of affirmation, it really does change my mindset for the day, for the week, for the month. In working on my mindset, I sprained my ankle terribly. I developed this nerve pain. And I literally, actually, Britta, my friend, she was able to prompt ChatGPT better than I did because I came out with like 8 words, words of affirmation or sentences of affirmation to heal my foot. She came up with 25. So she was better at prompting ChatGPT and sent them to me. And I really did speak those out loud to help my mindset, at least just dealing with my bad injury that was refusing to heal. So definitely mind over matter on that for sure. And then it doesn't hurt to role play. Absolutely not. And I'm a terrible role player, but I do it anyway. I still do it. So role playing is really important. I'm out of practice because I'm prospecting some commercial right now in the commercial space. And boy, I have gotten rusty on my cold calling. So role playing is really important. I'm definitely, and I had ChatGPT write a script for what I was doing because I was like, I'm not doing this right. These are the questions I want to ask, but I'm not getting to them. Write a script that allows me to meet someone unknown, make a phone call to them, and be able to ask these questions. So lead me into these questions. So it was really helpful. We're in a great time right now with AI. And there it is. That's your conversation list. So if you did just speak somebody where you're door knocking, make a note of their home address. You can still look them up. You can still find them, or you can write down their address and you can send them something in the mail if you felt like you made some sort of a connection to them. And then, of course, lead generation conversations. That's a whole nother section on this. So, but you do want to update and follow up with what you're putting into your database. And so entering those people into your data and mark them as your Mets, because you met and where you met them at an open house, and mark them at a Mets and an open house. So they're just going back through these and then talking about where you can get help with Command and Connect. So they're talking about capturing leads from social media. Our class is finishing up in 10 minutes. And so that was the last one. That is the one where I talked about, I had, his name's Sawyer. I had him make a video for me on how to market open houses with paid advertising online. And of course, I can't find the video. So I'm going to have him re-record it for me. And so really, I'm just wanting to, he was capturing those leads. So people were registering to his open houses. And now I've decided I'd want to implement that again. And because he was generating, he usually said between 6 and 10 people would register for his open house through Facebook. Now that does cost money. So I was paying for the money as the listing agent for him to do that. Of course, the leads were going into his database. I understood that, but he was doing the work for me and he's helping me sell the property. So, and so that I did understand the leads were going into his database. That was our arrangement. It doesn't mean every agent would have that arrangement, but that was our arrangement. Now, of course, when you're holding an open house, it is understood that those leads are your leads if you're there by yourself. If you are shadowing somebody other than door knocking, I would expect anybody coming in the house. You'll need to determine what the relationship is with those leads as they come in the door. Likely they'll go to the agent hosting the listing. But if you're out door knocking, that would be, this is my own soapbox saying I would think that those relationships you're building out door knocking would be leads you could put into your database. But each of those relationships. Now, one thing that I do, which is not really an open house, well, it applies to the whole listing itself. I actually place tags throughout the house, identifying not only the features of the home, but the benefits, because you have 4 different personality types, if not more, with different types of buyers. And some of them are visuals, some of them are readers, somebody will only like pictures, some only like to see in person. So I do label a house with its features. I can put by the front door that there's no HOA, that it's close to a park, that walking distance to an elementary school. On the back door, it's got a large backyard, it's got fruit trees, fully fenced. I put a mark on, by the door going into the furnace room that it's got a radon system, that it's got a water softener, that it's got a whole house humidifier, whatever those features are. And so this is what I do in a home. If the cabinets are unusually more expensive, such as their 42-inch cabinets with crown molding, I actually put a label next to the cabinets. 42-inch cabinet, upper cabinets, and crown molding, things like that. So I do feature my homes. If it's a luxury property, I do it differently, but for any of my other homes, I do feature the home, and people walk through and it makes sure that they don't forget a value in the home. They don't overlook it because they're reading labels, and many of them read them out loud. So it doesn't hurt to take that opportunity to do that for a listing agent if you are hosting an open house and labeling the house. So I just print them on my printer and I just fold them and I just stick them on the wall and I just do a features list. So that's one thing that I do that's a little bit unique. Sometimes people always say they love it, but not everybody says they always say they're going to do it, but I don't see it very often. But my clients, as well as my, like for instance, I have a house that had a whole house surge protector. Nobody's going to read the fine print. Very few people do in my description to make sure they miss that. Of course, I have it listed on the brochure as well or the flyer, but I want to make sure that when they're there walking the house, they're not going to miss that it has a surge protector on the house. That's an example. And does anybody have any questions for me before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just have one question. Do you have like background music when you're doing open
I
houses?
just use my phone. I just run background music on my phone.
Okay.
I do, yeah, I just use background music on my phone. I mean, if you want to be more techie and have a little box there, great. Now, I had a house that the neighbors are noisy, even though it's not against code or anything like that. So I actually bought a little radio. It's actually plugged in right now, plugged to just have a little bit more welcoming music coming in the door. So, so I did place one of those, but yes, it does help a lot. It helps my sanity to have some music playing on my phone, and it does help people feel more welcome when they come in the door. So yes, I completely agree with music. That's a lender that I do need to speak with. So, but I've been waiting for him to call me all day. Any other questions? Oh, you can also bring, just in case you're concerned about smell, you can bring a little plug-in. I always choose citrus. So I also bring a candle that I burn, and then I take my candle with me. So I have a citrus candle or I have a citrus plug-in, something that just smells good when they walk in the door. You guys are great. I appreciate you coming and I appreciate you having questions. And open houses are success, in my opinion. So much easier to talk to somebody that comes through the door than any other way. And it's a great reason to talk to a neighbor. It's a great reason to talk to a neighbor, and it's also another way to remind people who forget that we're real estate agents every 13 days, remind people on social media that we are in real estate by posting an open house. Okay. Well, if anybody doesn't have any more questions, I'll let everybody go. Sound good?
Thank you.
Thanks, Amber. Appreciate you. Thanks, Giovanna.
Thank you, Patrea. I appreciate it.
Welcome. See you later. I look forward to
Bye.
this. You're
Thanks.
super great, all of you. Look forward to your success and meeting you in person.
Thank you.